Hey guys, I hope you are so well. My name is Jen and today I'm going to be talking about packing for travelling with type 1 diabetes. I'm currently in South Africa for work, which is a sentence that I still can't believe I get to say. There are literally monkeys at my door distracting me right now. So I'm here for 4 weeks working and then I've tacked 2 weeks of travel on the end. This is a very different kind of trip than any I've taken before with or without type 1 diabetes, so I thought it might be interesting to chat through today how I've planned and prepared for this particular trip. As mentioned, for the first 4 weeks I'm working. This means basically that I have a huge amount of structure and routine to my day. I'm coming back to the same hotel room every night, I have meals at the same time every day, I work the same shift pattern every day. Things are pretty structured and type 1 diabetes really likes routine, so here I kind of know what I'm getting up to. For the last 2 weeks of the trip, when I get to travelling, I won't know what my day-to-day plan is, I don't really know where I'm going yet, and I'll be staying in lots of different places, different hostels and different hotels, so the routine side of things will go out of the window. However, I will be much more relaxed because I will be essentially on holiday. In terms of the length of the trip, 6 weeks is the longest I've ever been away with type 1 diabetes, so just in terms of packing and the quantities of stuff I needed to organise, that's thrown up a whole new set of considerations. Finally, I'm not really here with someone who has close experience of life with type 1 diabetes. Normally I travel with a close friend or a family member or a partner, someone who by proxy has some experience of what day-to-day life with this condition is about and the literal highs and lows. I'm here with colleagues who are exceptionally lovely, but they don't have that close experience of living around me. As we can tell already, there was quite a lot to think about when it came to planning and preparing for this trip. I'm going to give away my punchline really early. Don't say no to travelling with type 1 diabetes, particularly if type 1 diabetes is the only reason you're hesitating. But do make sure you give yourself enough time to plan and prepare, get your head in the right space and get everything together so that you can go off on your adventure and feel really confident and comfortable that you're going to be okay. Ahead of this trip, making sure I had everything I needed was quite the logistical feat. Obviously, most of my medical supplies come from the doctor, then I had to go to the pharmacy to get those supplies. Because of the quantities I was ordering, they didn't always have everything in stock. My insulin pump, my Omnipod, comes directly from Ypsomed, so I ordered that from them and then had to go to the post office to collect it. And then there was loads of extra stuff that I needed to buy either online or in the shops. So that took a number of weeks to get everything together. So it's really important that you don't leave everything to the last minute if you're planning a trip away. There's an actual wildlife documentary going on out there. I really wish you could see this. In fact, I'm in my bedroom and that's just a bunch of impalas having breakfast. Casual. Slightly different from the type of beast I encounter on the way to work normally. Oh, there's a little monkey. Oh, what are these guys? I feel like David Attenborough, guys. Don't mind me. Okay, slight interruption to proceedings, but hopefully it was worth it. I will keep you posted on the zebra. Packing for travel with type 1 diabetes, here we go. My first consideration was my insulin pump. This is the Omnipod insulin pump, which is the pump I use. It's a disposable, tubeless patch pump, and each one of these pods lasts for 3 days. When I'm going away to Europe or for the weekend, I tend to pack 1 pod per day for the duration of the trip. Packing 1 pod per day for 6 weeks of travel would have been absolutely unrealistic and unnecessary, so I settled for 20 pods, which is about 2 months worth. I have noticed when I'm on holiday that I tend to have a slightly higher turnover of pods than normal. Water sports, the hot temperatures, the fact that you're always sweaty and covered in sun cream. That hasn't been the case for this portion of the trip. As mentioned, I'm doing a very structured, routine-based day and nothing's hugely out of the ordinary except for the hot temperatures. Insulin! So these little vials, I've packed 4 and that's 4 months worth, which sounds ridiculous for a 6-week trip, but this is my life-saving drug. It's keeping me alive and it's just not something I want to take a chance with. I'd rather be looking at it than looking for it, in the words of my dear friend, who usually pulls that one out when we're going to order another round of drinks at the bar. But we are in such a remote region of South Africa at the moment. There is no way I could pop down the road to the pharmacy and get myself another vial of Nova Rapid. Also, these are fragile. If one of these smashes, that's a whole month gone for me. So it's not something I want to mess about with. Also, insulin reacts to hot temperatures. So if a whole vial goes off, again, that's going to be no good to me. In terms of storing my insulin, I've got a fridge here in this hotel room. That's actually something I checked before I left the UK, so that's quite a handy tip there. Hotels will be able to tell you if there's a fridge in the room or not, and you can plan accordingly. So for 4 weeks, I'm absolutely fine with the fridge, and then when I go traveling, I've got myself a Frio, which is just a little pouch that keeps your insulin cool when you're out and about and on the road in a hot climate. For 2 weeks, that should be absolutely fine. Happy days. I didn't worry about keeping my insulin cool for the duration of the flight. Plenty of doctors and pharmacists have told me that insulin is fine at room temperature for up to a month. Obviously that changes when you come into a hot climate like this, but I just made sure I put the insulin in the fridge as soon as I got to the hotel room. Sticking with the insulin injections. I've got one fast-acting and one long-acting insulin injection. Both have new cartridges in, and I've got 2 extra cartridges in the fridge. Again, that might seem like overkill, but my insulin pump actually completely failed on me relatively recently, and I was woefully underprepared when it came to being able to carry on injecting as normal. So, you know, in a hostile environment, hostile, not hostile. I will be staying in hostels and things can get lost or stolen, so it's just there as a backup, and I know that if something does go wrong with my insulin pump, I'll be able to stay alive, which is the aim here. Next is glucose testing. I bought 8 tubs of these test strips, which is about 2 months worth for me. That is double what I normally get on a regular prescription, so I had to make an appointment with the doctor to get the larger quantity. They were absolutely fine when I explained why I needed it, but I just had to make that appointment, fit it in around work, then go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy did not have that massive quantity in stock, so that was 2 trips to the pharmacy to get everything together. So again, it's just worth bearing in mind. I've also hooked myself back up to the Freestyle Libre here. It's something I wanted to do for a while because I don't think I've been giving my diabetes as much attention as I should. But when the announcement came that the Libre would be available on the NHS, I was holding out in the hope that I would be able to get it through a prescription. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I literally made my doctor sit down and type the name of the Libre into their system, and it just wasn't on the system at all. It is frustrating when we get given this kind of news, and actually for the end user, currently it means nothing. I have faith that it is coming, but for this particular trip, I paid for these sensors. I only bought 2 because cash money. I was going to use one at the beginning of the trip and one at the end of the trip because, as mentioned, that section of the trip will have much less routine and structure. But I'm here to work. I need to have work as my #1 priority, and the Libre just gives me so much more freedom. I can scan my blood glucose so quickly, and also this environment is quite high pressure. The days are busy, and even though I'm in a routine, my bloods have been fluctuating. So being able to scan so quickly and so easily has been really invaluable when it comes to just being able to get on with my work and do my job to the best of my abilities. So I'm going to use both sensors on this portion of the trip. Also, when I'm traveling, I won't be as stressed, I won't have any pressure on me, the days will be a lot more relaxed, there will be plenty of time for more finger prick testing. So that's how I'm playing that one out. It would have been great to have 3 sensors so I didn't have to make that decision, but having the Libre has been a bit of a godsend. Even with stuff like the aeroplane food, what an absolute mystery that is in terms of what it contains. Then you're obviously in a different time zone, in a different climate, you're getting used to different foods. There's so many variables when you go away on holiday and you're traveling that affect your blood sugar levels. If you do have access to a flash glucose monitor or a continuous glucose monitor, I've definitely found it very useful to have while abroad. I've also brought a spare glucose monitor and finger pricker. My glucose monitor is attached to my PDM. As mentioned, this did break a while ago, so it's just a complete last resort backup. It's nice to have. I'd rather be looking at it than looking for it. I'll say it again. On that note, as far as I'm aware, you can actually order a backup PDM for the duration of a holiday, so that might be worth investigating if you are planning a trip. Already I feel like I've got loads of stuff, but actually I don't feel like I've brought huge quantities of things. Luckily the technology is getting smaller and smaller. It enables you to have more options and more choice, and for me that peace of mind is just invaluable. When you're in a different culture, in a different country, there might be a language barrier, just that peace of mind that I can get on with my day, whether it be for work or adventure, and I can just focus on what I'm doing, and I know that whatever happens, whatever goes wrong, I've got options and backups and choices. I don't know what's going to happen day to day in life, let alone when it comes to type 1 diabetes. So having all this stuff just takes that weight off my mind and means that I can get on with enjoying what I'm doing. And for me, that's absolutely priceless. My type 1 diabetes definitely weighed on my mind ahead of this trip, but once I started planning and making lists, it felt so much less intimidating. My list for non-diabetes stuff was just as long as my list for diabetes stuff, and I started making a note in my phone probably about 3 months ago, so that when I thought of things at random times I could just jot it down and come back to it later. And once I had worked everything out and figured out what I needed, it was just a case of getting it all together. And once I started doing that, it became quite clear that I would be absolutely fine. A few extra bits and pieces, I've got spare needles, and I've also got 2 different types of lancet for the 2 different finger prickers I've bought. That's definitely overkill because I change my lancet about once a year, but we've got those anyway. I've also got a pack of ketone strips, I've got a pack of batteries for my PDM. I've also brought a sweatband to cover my Libre because I don't want to accidentally catch it and rip it off and waste a sensor. Hopefully on the traveling part of the trip I will be doing lots of activities and water sports. I'm such a water baby, might even jump out of a plane, who knows. So that's just to protect and cover the Libre sensor so that it doesn't go to waste. The next thing I considered was glucose to fix low blood sugars. One of my biggest fears when it comes to living with type 1 diabetes is having a hypo and not having the means to fix it. That has happened to me a couple of times and it's got a little bit hairy, so I was trying to avoid that at all costs with this trip. I've brought sweets on sweets on sweets. Usually I fix a hypo with either sweets or fruit juice. I can't carry liquids through security in my hand luggage, so I went for the sweets option. I also checked here, again we're in such a remote location, whether there was a shop on site and whether I would be able to buy things like bottles of Coke, which I have now done and popped in the fridge. I also bought glucose tabs. I don't particularly like the chalky texture, but they get the job done. Another thing I bought was these energy gels. I used to use these when I was cycling long distances, when I was out on the road. They are so easy to ingest very quickly and they really do get the job done. Again, they don't taste amazing. I think it's because they're quite chemically, but in terms of fixing a low blood sugar, these are really compact, easy to carry around, and they do the job. You can get these from Amazon. You can also get them from bike shops, but they are much more expensive there. That's my little recommendation for you. So I think that's pretty much it for medical supplies. Let's get to airport security. This did worry me just because I had so much stuff. I don't put any of my diabetes equipment in the hold. I just like to know that it's with me and close by. I just was quite nervous because I had all the Omnipods, all the batteries in the Omnipods. I had liquids galore with insulin, and then I also had my work laptop and my camera equipment, and I've been stopped before because I've got loads of electricals in my bag, so I would have been suspicious of me, to be fair. I was that person who needed about 4 trays at airport security because I had so much stuff. I could hear the people behind me tutting because I was taking too long, but this isn't a place to mess around, right? So I wanted to do it properly. I had my normal bag of liquids, non-diabetes related liquids in the normal clear plastic bag. I then had another one of these with medical related liquids in. So that's my insulin. I also put the energy gels in there, and those don't count towards your normal liquid allowance. You are allowed a separate bag. Then I had this ridiculous, massive bag. I put it in this bag to be literally transparent about what I was bringing through. It was full to the brim. I've been here a little while, so I've used some of the Omnipods. It has my test strips in and also my spare Libre sensor. Anything that was to do with my type 1 diabetes that wasn't a liquid was in here. I did get a few questions. We get through the scanner, my trays go to the right, everyone else goes to the left, and they skip off to duty free. Here we go. So to save kind of hassle and any questions, I instantly pulled out my doctor's note. This is literally 2 lines. All it says is I've got type 1 diabetes and I need to carry my equipment with me at all times. I've never had to use it before. I got a brand new one before coming on this trip, which I almost didn't do because I had one, but it was about 10 years old and it was from a doctor that I'm not even registered to anymore. So I asked for a new one. I didn't think I would need it in the UK at Heathrow Airport, but there we go. I also had a copy of my prescription with me. It's an official looking document. It shows exactly what I'm carrying and why I'm carrying it. Those 2 together completely sorted the situation. You just need to say what you need to say so that you can skip off on your merry way. All they're doing is their job. This was absolutely fine. Omnipods on their own are really small, and that is why I love wearing an Omnipod. It is teeny tiny. 20 Omnipods and their packaging in one go is quite bulky. By the time I get my next flight, which is an internal one, I will have used quite a lot of Omnipods, so I'll have a lot less stuff going through the next set of airport security. If anyone's been traveling for a super long time with type 1 diabetes, like 6 months or more, how do you manage it? Do you send supplies on? Like, how do you get through security with such a massive quantity? How do you carry it? I'd love to know. Let me know. The other thing to make sure you have is, of course, medical insurance. This is so important whether you have type 1 diabetes or not if you are traveling abroad. Travel is so much more common now. Insurance for type 1 diabetics doesn't cost an arm and a leg. I use a specialist medical condition travel insurance website, and you literally put the ins and outs of your condition in, so you are just so sure that you are covered in the event of something awful happening. Touch wood, nothing's gonna happen, but you want to know that you are covered if it does. The website I use is called All Clear Travel. It brings up loads of different quotes, and then depending on the excess you want to pay, you can just pick the policy that suits you. I've also got my insulin pump settings stored in an email. When my PDM broke last time, I did not have this information and I had to email my nurse. So I'm talking about insulin to carb ratios and insulin on board and things like that you program into your pump the first time you use it and then completely forget about. So I've got that stored safely in an email. If I need to reprogram a pump, I can get myself up and running. Another tip is to photocopy all of these important documents. So I'm talking about your medical insurance, your doctor's note, your prescription, and send it to someone in the UK that's close to you that can vouch for you should you be unable to vouch for yourself. This is obviously last resort, worst case scenario stuff, and God forbid anything should happen. But if it does, knowing that you've got that information somewhere and someone who understands it is able to access it, that is not a bad thing to be doing. Another thing to consider, especially if you're traveling alone, is not to be shy about telling people that you've got type 1 diabetes. You're obviously an independent person if you're traveling with type 1 diabetes already, and there is no shame in sometimes needing help. Having some people around that even know that you've got the condition in the first place is going to help you or a medical professional so much should you need help. So maybe tell someone at the hostel every time you check in, or someone in the dorm that you get chatting to. These conversations happen so naturally if you're traveling solo with other solo travelers. A lot of my colleagues have asked me about the Libre when they've seen the sensor, and I've absolutely been open about what it is and what my condition is, and most people are fascinated and curious and interested, and that's really cool. Okay, I think that's everything. Do let me know in the comments below if I've missed anything. There will be so many traveling hacks that I'm not even aware of, so let me know about those for sure. And here's to so many safe, fun, happy adventures traveling with type 1 diabetes. Give it a like if you've enjoyed this video or found it useful, and I will see you all very soon. Bye!